mean, I'm old school. I love Fedor. I met Fedor a couple of times, and like what it's like. He was the biggest name in the sport, especially at the time that I met him. And for Fedor to even know who I was, that was huge.
And that's the thing, though, is that people are like now all of a sudden calling Stipe the greatest of all time heavyweight.
Yeah, no.
And I'm
no, he's not.
This guy Fedor beat Mark Coleman, Prime Krokop, Prime Randleman, Prime Gary Goodrich. I mean, all the list of monsters he's killed, and he didn't have a loss on his record up until later on in his prime. Whereas, Stipe, I love Stipe now, but got a loss to Stefan Struve, got a loss to Junior Dos Santos. Like, I don't think Stefan Struve's beating Fedor in his prime.
Yeah. I don't know if Stipe is beating Fedor in his prime, but the thing about it is, he hasn't been loving long enough. You know what I mean? Fedor has been there. We're putting this moniker on Stipe that he's the greatest heavyweight of all time after defending the belt twice or 3 times.
Yeah.
And Fedor fought the best guys over and over and over again and beat them all and beat some what do you call them? Some Showtime fights in between them. But at the same time, I'm sorry, but the short resume that Stipe has, Stipe could very well be the greatest heavyweight of all time later. But right now, it's still Fedor. And I don't care who you are. If you want to argue with me, you can choose to agree with me.
That was audio from Octagon News. That was Yves Edwards and some other gentleman. I'm not sure who he is. But they were speaking on the greatest of all time heavyweights. And they just said Fedor is the greatest of all time. They have an argument. They just mentioned all the names that Fedor beat in Pride. But I'm here to spin that argument all the way around. Now, recently, Chael Sonnen said that on his podcast, Bad Guy Inc. And he said that in Pride, they would fix the fights. There were no weigh-ins. The referee had an earpiece in his ear. Usually the guy who was meant to lose would lose. And only reason why I believe what Chael Sonnen was saying is because of where Pride was broadcasting from. Pride is from Japan, if I'm not mistaken, and Japanese businesses usually are run by the Yakuza. Anybody who's ever been to Japan, any fighter who's ever fought for Pride will tell you that. Even some fighters who fought for Pride will admit that the fights were fixed. And the names that didn't know about the fixed fights were the superstars, your Fedors, your Krokops, your Vanderleys, so on and so forth. Right? And their whole argument is that Fedor faced tougher competition. Not necessarily, man. I wouldn't say that. Fedor faced competition that was on steroids. Fedor faced the golden age of his time on steroids, right? I mean, it was in the contract for Pride that they did not test for steroids. Like, there's a reason why they put that in the contract, you know? Another argument for them saying that Stipe is not the best and Fedor is that, and don't get me wrong, ladies and gentlemen, I'm a huge fan of both of these fighters. I'm more of a fan of Stipe, though. Why? I am actually seeing Stipe in action. I am seeing Stipe beat the best of his time, the best his division has to offer, aside from Kane. And he's just running through them, man. And let's not forget, he's doing this in the age of drug testing. So there is no steroids. There is no one cheating. It's raw physicality, my guy. It's just their talent. It's their will versus the other guy's will. And Stipe is at the top of that list. Only argument against him is Kane. I have a question for all of you MMA diehards, right? Do you think a heavyweight from this time could dominate, like Stipe, Kane, could dominate the way they did in this time back in the Pride days, back when steroids weren't really accounted for. Um, Back in the golden age, back in the Wild West. Let me know what you guys think. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'm out.